Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Hitting the Bars. It is Keltie, virtually beside savvy1. How you doing?
I'm doing good, feeling fantastic. What about you?
I am actually feeling good, even though the topic of today's video would have you thinking otherwise, because you know what? Aren't we all just overwhelmed with everything? Do you actually feel like that? I feel like you
Always.
do a good balance, or do you feel like I've never have it under control?
Um, mm, I feel like I go through waves, and then sometimes I'm like, is that normal that I go through those mini waves? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yep, yep.
I'll go through all these emotions, and I'll be like so high and be like, I'm on top of the world, and then all of a sudden I'm like, what's going on? So I don't know. Revisit that. At the moment, I feel overwhelmed. I'm not on a
Okay.
high. What about you?
Yep. Last week, I was definitely not. I was like, the world is burning. I cannot handle this. What am I doing? I'm a hamster on this guinea pig wheel that is life, and everything's crumbling. And this Monday, as of now, it's Monday. Talk to me on Thursday. I'm like, I feel okay. And I feel it's like, but then I don't trust this feeling because the weeks I go into it, I'm like, I'm feeling good. I'm ahead of it. I've got control. Wednesday comes, and I'm like, the world is falling apart. Versus on the flip side, sometimes I'm like, I can't wait too much to do it. And I just write out what I have to do. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. So I feel the ups and downs. Like sometimes the anxiety in our heads is worse, but sometimes the anxiety in my head is not enough. So it really depends on the week.
Yeah, that is fair. Every now and then I need to like take a step back when I get stressed out and be like, almost like count your blessings and like see your reality, you know?
Yes.
Like I always need to take a step back and be like, whoa there, girl. Is this something to get your undies in a bunch? And I'm like, no, actually. And that's usually what brings me down.
Gratitude, it's so cheesy, but it's so true. When you're just like, wow, I did wish for this life 3 years ago, and here I have living in it. And like 3 years, like any like past Keltie had been like, you're not thankful for that? And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's still gonna, and you're always gonna have problems. And I think realizing like the problems doesn't mean you have a bad life. But do I tell myself that in the moment? No, I'd rip your head off if you told me that in the moment when I'm stressed.
Absolutely. Do you want to get into your first hot take of the day?
I do have a hot take. No one looks cool when their AirPods fall out. There is nothing more humiliating. We've all experienced it. You just not like you either drop your headphone cases and they splatter everywhere, or one falls out and it bounces and you're like trying to grab it. It is so humiliating. And it doesn't matter how cool you are. Everyone looks like the lamest human. And it's so embarrassing when it happens to you. And no one's looking at someone and be like, oh, this idiot, how could you let that happen? Like, we all know it. It's just the way of life. But when it happens to me, the embarrassment I have. I was like, I'm the lamest human on earth trying to chase these AirPods. But that's a low point in my day when the AirPods fall out. I'm like, I'm questioning my life decisions.
The worst is when it like falls out and it scatters. Like in the do you ever have that fall out in the case? That happens to me all the time. And
all the time.
You're already flustered and like it falls out of your fanny pack and you're like, oh my God. And then you're like, I need this AirPod. And weirdly they don't break. So knock on wood. But Apple, you're doing good so far with that. Mine haven't broken and I drop them multiple times a day.
True. The only time they broke is when I accidentally drove over one with my car. But you know, that's to be expected.
Oh.
Yeah. Not car proof.
That is hilarious.
It fell out and I didn't realize
noted.
it. And then I was like, I went home and I was like, where is it? And then I drove back to the restaurant I was at. And then there was a squished AirPod on the road. And I was like, oh. And this was when I was like dirt poor. So I was like, well, not dirt poor. I could afford AirPods. But you know what I mean? I was like, money was tight. I saved up for those and just saw. So I lived with like one AirPod for a good 8 months of my life, I think.
Absolutely.
That probably did some damage.
That is wild. I mean, I have like hunted down my AirPods before. Like if I leave them somewhere, I will hunt their location. And like, have I ever told the story on the podcast about the wedding I went to and I left my AirPods?
I feel you have. Or you might have told me. I'm not sure. That sounds
It was just like, all short story was I left my AirPods. Took like a month, but I was determined to get these back because I always have to buy new ones. And it turned out that someone had stolen them and like lied about it.
Yeah.
And it was this whole thing. I didn't know. I just was like, hey, this is the address. Do you know where this is? And the guy was like, oh, she lied about them. And you got the address that her house is at. And I was like, oh, well, can I have my AirPods though? And I got them.
Crazy.
And they
Well
were
done.
just fine.
Perfect.
But yeah, anyways, my hot take is Game of Thrones is the greatest show of all time. I know it's old. I know that it's been years, but I'm rewatching it and they just don't make shows like they did back then. And this is my question is, do you think, I was just asking Michael this, do you think that those actors that like got on Game of Thrones and maybe they didn't know it was going to be so successful? Because like nobody was a well-known name, right? Like nobody was in the show. And there's a lot of nudity. Like, do you think that it's like frowned upon if you take a role like that in the industry where you're super nude? Like, do you think you can still go viral and still, like, obviously Aquaman got to start there, but like, I've always wondered that because they're all naked at one point usually. And like, I would like to know that from the actor's perspective. Is it frowned upon? If you just, you don't know if it's going to be big. So like, you don't know who's going to see the nudity, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just wonder that in the acting field.
Well, first of all, I thought your hot take was just going to be like Game of Thrones is great. I was like, that's the least hot take I've ever heard. But the more you get into it, I was like, that, yeah, no, I think it's universally agreed upon is the best television show. Some people say Sopranos, but I was like, oh, that's a pretty universally agreed upon thing. Like I would say like hands down, and I'd battle that. It 100% is the best show ever. But I think if it was like 5+ years ago, if you did a nude scene, you would be like tarnished as like the girl who does nude scenes. Like it'd almost be like having nothing wrong if you want to do OnlyFans, but there is a tarnish.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
I was going to say there's a condensation right there. If someone says they've OnlyFans, people are going to have like a thought about it right away. And I think the version of that 5-10 years ago was like if an actress did a nude scene, like not saying it's the equivalent, but just like the tarnish it gives and like the judgment people put on someone who wants to do that. I don't think it's that bad as it anymore. Like, I think it's just a bit more like, is she comfortable with it? I think there'd be backlash if the actress came out and was like, oh, I wasn't comfortable and the director made me do it. There'd be a lot of backlash, but I think a lot more it's like, oh no, like respect. She's willing to do that for the art. Like nudity isn't even like frowned upon anymore, I feel, in some ways. Like it's just like we see so much more. Like I maybe you wouldn't be able to do a kid's show as much because people would be like, oh, you can Google your nudes. But I don't, maybe it's just me, but I think there's no real taboo about it anymore. It's just more of like, wow, ballsy.
Yeah, I was trying to look up like the reason to see if people wanted it, like if there was any judgment, and there's honestly not a lot on that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any judgment. Like I feel that taboo is completely gone. Like like you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah, there was nudity. Like I don't even when I think of Game of Thrones, I think of 500 things before I think about the nudity in it. So it's just so not like just so normalized. We're like, oh yeah, she showed her boobs. Cool. Free the
yeah. There's some people just saying they like personally can't imagine walking down a street and like somebody them knowing they've seen them naked. But I just watched the iconic scene with Cersei where it's like shame, and she's just butt naked, and I'm like, I've just got to wonder, what is it like? Also, what is it like filming?
But
I have so many questions.
So many, but it's not, you see someone in bikini, you can put 2 and 2 together what it looks like underneath. You know what I mean? That's why it's almost like not shocking.
I don't know, Keltie, like, you're making it sound like it's not that big of a deal. If somebody told you have to go nude for your freaking YouTube channel, I think you'd be feeling some different type of way.
YouTube, because that'd be OnlyFans. But if I'm on Game of Thrones, the most like critically acclaimed show of all time, yep, sure, let's do it for the art. Yeah, if I was on Game of Thrones and I knew and I got to be a part of it, as long as I was consent and I got to see the final things, if I could be on that critically acclaimed and like I don't think it's sexual at that part, like you know what I mean? Like I feel it's like when you see those
they're literally having sex on Game of Thrones.
That's different.
It's definitely sexual.
True. But in the sense that like it's not a porno, you know what I mean? You're not doing it so someone gets off on it.
It's soft porn.
What we do. I guess, yeah.
They're definitely. Are you kidding me? I am rewatching this. There are like brothels. What scene are you taking?
I know. I guess like you know what I mean. I mean like it's not with the consent, like it's not meant to be porn. It's meant to be like art. And there's ironically very raunchy scenes in it. So yeah, it would be
I
tough. I'm not
don't.
going to say it's easy, but I was like, if that you got to be a part of the best television show of all time. And that's part of
Keltie's
it. I
like,
was like, yeah.
she's like, I'm not down for the brothel, but I'm down for the shame walk.
I did a brothel too, but I felt none of.
Did
But
you know? I didn't know this. Taylor
mm,
Swift wrote the song "Look What You Made Me Do"
mm,
off of Game of Thrones. Arya's kill
respect.
list.
Yeah,
Isn't
love
that
that.
wild? And there's a bunch of like Reputation songs that were basically like recorded for Game of Thrones. Like that's how
Oh,
she
that's
took her
sick.
inspo.
I love that. See, it's art. It's
Love
art.
it.
It's so much art. I love it. But
Mm-hmm.
here's what I don't love, and here's my other hot take. I don't know if I saw this Instagram reel, and it was like, the EMFs and like radio frequencies and everything's killing us, and AirPods are killing us. Back on the AirPod thing, this is what it stemmed it. It was this one like showing how our AirPods are killing us because the EMFs and all this. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's not possible. Like, definitely in 80 years, could we find out they do something? But at this rate, I think if they were that bad for us, everyone would be dead. Do you know what I mean? Like, how is like, I haven't heard of a single person who's like, I've got sick from my AirPod. You know what I mean? That is nowhere. I've seen nothing. Do you know what I mean? And we've
I've
had them for
actually
so long.
seen things about that.
Really? Maybe I don't,
Yeah.
maybe I'm just
I
not in
bought
that.
like the stickers that block EMF.
Oh, I'll look into it. But all I'm just saying,
But
I'm not saying it's not good because it definitely could be. But I mean, like, they make it sound like it's, I'm like, wouldn't we all be dropping dead if it was that bad as they make it seem? You know what I'm saying?
yeah, no,
I
I
feel
agree. I do think that there's just not enough study on it,
true.
possibly.
Yep.
So, like, it could just be it's, a newer product. Like, yes, it's been out for
Definitely.
years, but like, and I only think this because I remember when vaping came out and like everybody
Hmm.
was basically saying that was like a healthier alternative. And my mom was a nurse and she was like, that is not a healthy alternative. Like, yeah, of course, you're probably going to smoke less of whatever it may be, but it's
Totally.
still bad for you. And she was like, there's just not studies, just wait. And then,
Hmm.
like, years later, now things are
Yeah.
coming out, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, I agree. And I don't want to believe it's bad for you because I do wear
I
AirPods.
know. I'm in denial. I'm
But
in
like,
denial.
I'm still using them. But I
Hmm.
do like think there's just not enough research on it and not enough time where I think they're
Yeah.
saying long term, maybe, but I don't want to believe it.
Yeah.
So,
It's one of those. I'm not saying they're not good for you. I'm just saying these people are like, they're killing you. I was like, wouldn't we all be dead? Like, why is no one, you know what I mean? Just like at the rate of how much we use it. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying they're good, but I'm just like, I think we'd be dropping dead left, right, and center at this point. 'Cause there's like people that are have them on all day for like the last decade. So that's where I'm like, I think we'd be seeing the apocalypse by now.
yeah, I really think about it now when I like use them. Like, I won't
Hmm.
take them into the sauna with me. I used to. I don't
Oh,
fall asleep with them anymore because I do think about it. I am a hypochondriac to
yeah.
the core. So,
Hmm.
trust me, this stuff lives rent free. One of my good friends at home, she is the same as I am with being a hypochondriac and just like a type A person with things that I can control. I'm like, I'm not the classic type A with like being clean and things might have to be my way. It's solely like what I control in my life with like my
Mm,
health or my
yeah.
dog. And like, I will be a helicopter mom and she'll joke where she's like an example will be I don't even let Bentley off the leash in our backyard because he eats cat poop. And I'm like, we have a lot of stray cats. I think that's actually quite understandable because you don't know
Mhm.
what he's eating.
Oh
But
yeah.
people would say I'm excessive for putting a leash on him to go in our backyard. And I'm like, well, we got these stray cats that are everywhere, right? Like he goes straight
Yeah.
for the poop. And she's like, oh, absolutely. Like she doubles down. She's like, oh, yeah. And I definitely think of this. Or like the one recently, she was like, do you ever think about a tsunami when you're walking near the ocean? I'm like, all the damn time. I'm like, do you ever think that way? Or is it just
Oh
just
yeah, no.
us?
I just think that way in weird ways though. Like I definitely am like walk across a bridge. I'm like, oh, this could collapse right now. I'm always kind of like vague. That's why I always joke I love being with Megs because when I'm here alone, I'm like, I'm thinking of every danger at all times. I'm like, okay, if this happens, I gotta do that. If that happens, I gotta do this. This is gonna collapse. This is gonna. As soon as I'm with Meg's, brain is off, and I'm just like, do 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 do, a do 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 do. That's his problem. If the world ends, he has to save me. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's why I love when I'm with Megs. But when I'm in Vancouver, I'm like thinking of every possibility that could kill me at all times.
I just saw a TikTok or a reel today. I wish I saved it. That was that. It was this girl that was like, oh my God, everyone's out to get me. When it's like without her boyfriend. And it's like when she's with her boyfriend, she's like, la, 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 la. Like so oblivious.
Brain off.
Yeah.
And then he's like sitting there. Oh, go on.
Well, no, you go for it.
I was just going to say, and then his brain goes, okay, we're this far away from the door. If the fire burns, we have to go this way. And then his brain is like turbo version. I'm like, but men have that evolutionary system. Like it doesn't affect their hormones. He's fine.
Yeah, exactly. He's good.
He's fine. He has testosterone.
It's like the birdie. Did I talk about it on last week's podcast that I got the birdie thing from my father-in-law?
I don't think so.
He basically gives all the women in the family this contraption. And if you pull on it and yank on it, it screeches. And it's just like a way, if someone was to attack you on a run, it just scares the shit out of them. It doesn't alert anybody. It just, it's so loud. And I'm like in my kitchen, freaking like, I want to hear it. And I open it and Bentley and I are like, ah. And then Michael's like, I want to hear it. And he's like, ah. It's horrible, but like I keep it in the car now, and you bet your ass I'm like walking to the car in the safe community. I see a man near me. I pull out the birdie. I'm like, don't fuck with me. Your ears will bleed. Yeah.
I was like, that's why we all have Yetis and Stanleys. They're weapons, and that's how we have to think.
Yes,
it's great.
That's really why we have a Stanley, huh?
Yeah, that's the reason. We're just like always thinking. I'm like, yep, it's my weapon that I can, I can't carry a gun in Canada, so I carry a Yeti.
I love it. It's hilarious.
Which, speaking of all the overwhelmness, I was going to say, speaking of being overwhelmed and just 1,000 things on our mind, today's topic, just how do we balance? Now, we're not saying we're perfect. We're just like every other girl trying to balance the foundations of work, social life, finance, fitness, and just balancing those all together. So we're going to just do some tips that have made us just a little less overwhelmed. Starting with number 1, work. What are some tips you have from balance to overwhelm?
Okay. Well, as somebody who works for herself now, but I used to work for a corporate job, I feel like I had to learn how to build my own schedule and like be really strict with it. Because at first I was like, this is great. I can work all the time. I love what I do for work. And then I like hated myself and I would be so sad. And so I had to learn to have like this strict schedule to where I gave myself weekends fully off. I know a lot of girls work overtime. I train a lot of girls that have these jobs that are super demanding, or even maybe you're a realtor, whatever it is that you're dealing with your own hours. Make sure that you have this strict schedule. Like make a Google schedule and like block off your off time so nobody can plan around it. Because if you don't have that like balance between what's work and what's real life, it's just going to mesh and it'll just be messy. And like just do yourself a favor and block it off. So mine I think is before 8 a.m. every single day. And then mine's after 6 p.m. every single day. And it's like no one can block it off. And then weekends I have blocked off. And it's like,
I love that.
Blissful.
Love it. Mine's similar, but it's a bit more new, like specific with work. But I block in my work schedule because I'm the same. I have my on hours and I have my off hours, but I do 90 to 120 minute time blocks. And the reason is you can only concentrate on one topic about 90 minutes. And if you're an expert, you can do up to 2 hours. And for myself, at least, I used to like edit a YouTube video or work on whatever project and work up to like 2, 3. I would hold my pee and I'd be working on it like 5 hours. And like, I would grow to hate it and this disdain because it was like, I'm doing so much work but nothing's getting done. And I realized if after 90 to 120 minutes, you just take a break, even if it's just a minute, walk outside, get lunch, you know what I mean? And just like, I would block little periods that you could like come back so refreshed and I'm like excited to get back into it versus I used to be so scared of like getting out of the workflow and someone distracting me. And then I just found like, you got to do multiple of those days. I don't just work for 90 to 120 minutes, but you don't have that, like, at least for me, I would work for 3-4 hours. And the thought of getting back into that workflow, because I left it so hating, I would just like put it off and I wouldn't do it. And then the next day I'd be like, oh, and it would just be that egging feeling in the back of my mind of just that ickiness. I left it. But at 90, 120 minutes, I'm like, okay, take a breather, go get some food, go have a drink of water, hug a plant or a dog or a human, and come back. And then I'm like, good to go. So schedule your work, but schedule a little 90 to 120 minute blocks, or 60. 60 might be all you can do at the start. But I find that's kind of the nice frame for me.
I think that's awesome. I'm going to use that tip.
Please
I didn't
do.
realize, but it totally makes sense.
From Huberman himself, to quote him for the 30,000th time.
Your second boyfriend.
You know what? I just listen to them all, so no one else has to. So you know what? No one else wants to listen to those 3 hour Stanford professor talks and summarize it. That's what I'm here for. So I do it for the people.
I do it for the people. I do it for the well-being of the people.
Exactly.
You're such a giver.
I know. What's your men's work? Now play. What about social life? How do you balance having an actual social life in this busy world?
Mine is all about killing two birds with one stone, usually. So like I have talked about, I do Pilates with my girlfriends. I do coffee before. So it's like I'm getting my workout in. It makes it so less stressful on a Tuesday because I don't have to go to the gym. And I can like have coffee an hour before. Sometimes I get like a round of our friends and we go for a little sunrise walk. So like I'm all about doing it before I start my work day. And that way or ending it on like a sunset walk and just being pretty strict on like, hey, this is when I'm going to do it. FaceTime calls to catch up with friends and family, weekends. I guess that's how I kind of deal with my socialization, and just also trying to plan fun things. Like I will do a dinner with my friends. I'll do like something that's not only, you know, working out and killing two birds, but like not just doing it every single night. Like I'm like, hey, let's be smart about it.
I like that.
What about you?
Mine is two front, one group chats. I know it's dumb, but just like keeping your friends updated, and like even like you don't think they want to hear it, just the little things, your wins, your like just sending photos, even if you just can't like mentally contribute, just sending photos, just keeping friends updated. And then like it doesn't feel so daunting to make plans and that. And I know the group chat, I'm in long distance friendship, is a game changer. And like I used to be like, oh, no one wants to see. And even though I got a stupid new water bottle, I'm going to send it to them because someone needs to know. And that's what friends are for. And then we do a weekend thing where like you can only do 3 things on a weekend and you only have 2 days. You have a personal day, just yourself, your whatever you want to do, just a recovery. It can be a rotting day, it can be a wellnessy day, but a social day where you go out to friends, or a productive day where you get your adulting stuff. And I was like, and you just pick 2. And like if we've done social every week, like we'll take a weekend off, but just being like, hey, just try and do a social day and a productive day, or the next weekend do productive and personal, and then do personal and social, and like devote one to it. And then I find that just makes it so you feel like you're rejuvenating, having time to yourself, but also being social. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how at least I balance it.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, I think it's a good way to block off your weekends with giving yourself a personal day. Because I know for me, I'll be booked and busy, and then I'll feel emotionally drained and like want to hide from people. So it's like good if you're like, hey, you know, I'm just not going to overbook myself on a Sunday. I'm going to, you know, try and see everybody on this day. If it doesn't work out, then I'll see them next weekend.
Exactly. And then a hack, Fridays, you're like, if I'm really productive Friday, I can have just a personal and social weekend, and vice versa. So that's kind of, I had a social Friday, so I'm just going to stay to myself the other 2 days. But that's how I balance it. What about you balancing finances?
Ooh, okay. So for finances, I'm a big budgeter, and like that's always how I have been. I think that's how my mom raised me. And recently I've really been doing this thing where instead of impulsively purchasing, even on Amazon, I really just like, I put it in my cart and then I revisit it in a day or two, and just making sure no matter what, unless it's something you're in dire need, that you need, right? Like I just bought tampons. I needed organic tampons, but it's kind of hard to find here. If it's something fun, being like, sit on it and really think of it and think on it instead of impulsive. Cause I used to be an impulsive buyer, and now I'm like, I'm just trying to get smarter about it. And even budgeting with like, I now do my own nails. I do my own eyelashes. So for me, I was like, I can afford to like tone my hair to this red because like, that's how I budget it. Like I took away those. This is what I'm doing now.
I love that.
What about you?
Well, my finances aren't my strongest suit, but that's how I'm learning to balance it, is just like educating and just realizing like your own relationship with money. Like I know for me, people are like, "Oh, you're such a minimalist. You love such a clean home." I was like, "No, I just won't buy stuff. Like I just won't buy it and I'm okay." And like I'll purposely not buy things for so long, stuff that would improve my quality of life that I should justify buying, and then I'll buy in something instead. And you know what I mean, to justify something that'd be simple. Or like I'll purposely buy something, not buy something for so long that I'm like, but and I desperately need these things. So I just impulse buy a bunch of stuff, and then I'm like not even happy with, just to like feed the void of the stuff I just genuinely need, whatever the heck it is. So like, why is that? Why do I? Because I was like, I assume my money's always going to disappear or whatever. But just like, so the best thing to kind of go over that was just like reading a lot of finance books. And there's a lot more fun ones. There's like Girls Who Invest. There's podcasts about from a girl's perspective, and like millennial like ones. And I think Millennial Money, I think she is on YouTube. She has a great one, just like educating. There's a lot more fun resources, but I just did over the last year, 2 years, just educating myself on like how people think of money, why people invest, how to budget, all that kind of stuff, and like make it idiot proof for yourself. And that's how I work about budgeting. It's just like I spend money on these, I don't spend money on these. I need to like write, whether it be plan, not impulse buying. Like I kind of was like, I'm not allowed to buy anything I put right in the cart. I can put it in the cart, but I have to sit on it. But I can only sit on it for so long because sometimes I'll just consume too much of my life. But educating yourself with podcasts and books, because I'm trying
I
to
love
learn.
that.
What
No, I
about
think
for
that's awesome.
Fitness for yourself?
Fitness for me, I had to learn a long time ago, and that was having to schedule it in as like a non-negotiable. This is definitely willpower and discipline, so you got to work on that for sure. Because there's lots of girls that I train that I'm like, oh, it's this easy, just non-negotiable. Like penciled in like a meeting, and like they don't do
Mm-hmm.
it, and I'm like, okay, we just have to work on how we view this, and
Yeah.
it's taken me a long time to get there. But I just know I will be crunchy. I was going to say crotchety and grumpy. So crunchy, where I
Mm-hmm.
just like, if I don't move, I will literally feel bad. Like I don't have those endorphins. Like I need something to release the stress.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I like always make sure to fit it in. Doesn't mean I go to the gym if I'm busy. It might just mean like going for a simple walk, but penciling it in and just like not allowing anyone else to book it. So if you're working at your desk, going for like a walk on your lunch break, or and like sometimes that means making sacrifices. Sometimes it means
Yeah.
you can't scroll on TikTok and eat your lunch. And like maybe just go for a walk and like try it. And you think so much clearer as well when like you're not on social media as much.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, it's proven. So it's like
Yeah.
just trying to figure out what you're willing to give up. Or if you do want to go on it while you're at the gym when you're on the
Mm-hmm.
Stairmaster, right?
I love that. I found because I was blessed growing up. I played sports, so being active was part of my life. But then when I got out of it, I was like in a bit of a funk for a couple of years because it was just like, it was weird. I was like, I have all this freedom. I don't have to be at the gym. Like it was non-negotiable from like 3 to 6 p.m. every day of my entire life. I was at practice. There was like, there's no questions. You have to go. Like you can't miss it. And so I realized I almost have to like redo that. So there's two different ways. One is when I'm in a really busy work period, where like it's overwhelmed and it's too much, I just book fitness classes, even if it's just 1 week, two, just like something. It's like, even if I just have to get the free passes, if money's tight, like I have to go to those because I don't want to spend the money of missing it or the penalty or all that. So I was like, it makes it non-negotiable. It makes it like, no, I have to show up to these. And then all I do outside of that is like walk when I can, get some fresh air. And that's when I'm in like those crazy work demands. And then normally when work isn't as crazy and just I'm a bit more in my balanced life, is like realizing when working out is easy. For me, getting up, going to the gym, then going to work is quite easy. It just becomes a habit. I don't really think about it. It's not like, oh, should I go to the gym today? It just becomes part of the routine. They don't even question it. If I go in the morning, there's no mental, it's on the way. Like I have a gym that's on the way. So I'm just like, oh yeah, I wake up this time, I pop in the gym, I do my things, go. Versus I know if it's after work, I'm a little drained. I have no energy. I'm like, and I play those mind games and I'll talk myself out of it about half the time. So I find it's like, find the time in the day that you'll actually show up. It'll be part of your routine versus figure out, just like mentally keep track of like times you talk yourself out of it and those excuses, and like play games. be a coach. I was like, I realized I had to coach myself. I had to assign, nope, you'll talk yourself out of at 5 p.m. So you got to go in the morning. And like sometimes we have to parent ourselves, and that would be one of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that.
Now, how do you balance all four? Because it's one thing just balancing one, but having to balance all four areas.
I mean, there's no cookie cutter answer, but I do, and I still feel like naturally we all struggle with it. But
Mm-hmm.
something that really helps me is I don't know if it's like I'm 29, I'm getting older, but there's something about me craving alone time more. I just was saying I've been this homebody where I'm like, I really love being home now. I've never been someone like that. I used to fill up my time. I didn't like being alone ever. Like, I think it stemmed from like my parents splitting up and like they were at work. And so I was always home at like an empty home until they got, home at 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always at friends' houses. And I almost had to like unlearn that and like be okay with being alone and liking the silence and like I still have my dog, I mean, my husband's always home, but when he's gone as well, it was just something I noticed I would fill the void, but then I would feel
Mm-hmm.
burnt out because I was bad at balancing everything because I felt like I was being too social or I was working too much because I was avoiding that alone time. Where now I've learned like I have to have a strict schedule with myself when I'm home to like do work, to see the friends, but also I have to pencil in the alone time. Otherwise, I will go nutty. And like, even though I love being around people and I'm someone that just like feeds off of that energy, there's something about like I'll get grumpy that if I don't just like have a time to reset. So I don't know if that actually helps balance it, but I've just noticed if I don't allow myself to have alone time, whether it's even like I'll book my schedule to a T where I'll like be walking every single morning with a different friend where I'm like, stop doing that. Just go for a walk on your own. Like just put a podcast in, sit there in silence. And I'm like, okay. So that's what I do.
I like that. I like
What
that.
about you?
Mine, we'll take one perspective, the perspective of like when life can be balanced, you know what I mean? You just got to fill your buckets and be good. And you have, which is nice. And we kind of talked about, I'm going to talk about from like when you take on a little bit more, when you're like, life is just a little too much. So back in August, I went back to school. So I was already like, I'm at my wit's end. Like I have no extra time. Like I don't have any extra hours. I'm already feel overwhelmed and I'm going to go back to school. But I was like, but I really am passionate about music and I want to get better. I was like, what can I do to actually make this work? And so I did, this is not sexy, a self audit. I took my entire day, like I thought about Monday, Tuesday, every day, and I kind of wrote out what I did at every time and found what are my wasted hours? What are not making me healthy? What's not making me rested? What is not making me social? What are those hours that it's like is actually useless? And I figured out 10 p.m. to midnight was an absolute waste of time for me. Like I still sit at 9 o'clock, I'll have my dinner, watch a show for about an hour, scroll a bit of social media, do whatever my little stupid wasted time is. I still have that. But 10 to midnight was a battle between, do I scroll a bit more? Do I watch one more show or do I go to bed? And then I'd be like, oh, get off the couch to go to bed. And that was 10 p.m. to midnight. I was like, I'm not happy. Like I hate it at the end of the day that I'm sitting there just wasting time. So I was like, what's the solution to that? Waking up early. And like this, I'm not saying this isn't the solution for you, but I was like, but if I have to get up at 5, I can't stay up till midnight. Like I have to be in bed earlier. And I'm not perfect at it, but I realized I was like, if I want to be able to balance all these things, I have to wake up at 5 a.m. And it sucked for a little bit, but then I got in the habit. And that's the only way I can get, the gym in before I get to work. And then I'm at work at, 7 to 9. And then I work and then I do school 4 to 6. And then I have an hour and then I go home and shower and wash and have a night routine. But long story short, just think about what are those wasted hours that like you kind of regret that you're not doing anything productive, but still budget in. You're allowed to scroll TikTok. You're allowed to watch a TV show, but it's like, when's the doom scrolling started? When's the binging happen? And like, how can you modify your schedule so those are productive? And I wasn't going to be productive at 10 p.m. So I'm not going to be like, pretend I'm going to start working on school at 10 p.m. I'll just end up scrolling anyways. So I'm like, you know what? You're going to be part of the 5 a.m. club, even though I hate that. Like, I kind of hate that I say that because it's like, oh, 5 p.m. I don't think it's magical. I just think it worked for me. And that was my solution.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Especially if you notice, like, I used to be a night owl and then nothing was getting done. I was like, it was getting dark, like in the sense of like, that's when I would compare. It was just, you have time at night,
Yeah.
the world's a little quiet. So if you know that, yeah, switch up your routine, kind of avoid it.
I love it. So we'll tie that on a bow. Good luck if you're feeling overwhelmed, but let's help and finish off with some questions from the audience.
Perfect. I will go. So, first question is advice on consistency for those who work shift and can't do the same thing and can't do the same don't every week?
Do the same split every week. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Typo on my part.
The hell, Keltie.
I'm sorry. I'm overwhelmed.
You're overwhelmed. Okay, so they have a shift. Let me recap because I'm confused now. And they can't do the same workout split every week.
Yes.
I would say, kind of like you said, if you can pencil in a workout class that you pay for, that'll force you to go, and just make sure it aligns with your shift. Or if you are like, hey, I just got to get to the gym, you just figuring out when you can fit it in, whether it's getting up early in the morning. My sister-in-law, she is a dental hygienist. So she actually became like a morning workout person where she would wake up at 5 a.m. And then it's kind of her alone time. So she's kind of found the silver lining if you're someone that doesn't love that. And you could try it just like 2 days a week, right? Like any movement's great movement. So if you have a shift where maybe you're crazy busy, you can't always be the morning, maybe you're night shift, whatever it is, just trying to find those little pockets and just try 2 to 3 times a week, see how you like it, and then adjust. That's what I would say.
Exactly. I find the best way to do split work is like, you have to realize, to do shift work is you have to realize it's unconventional. So your workout's going to be unconventional. I feel a lot of people who have like Monday through Friday job can have Monday legs, Tuesday upper body. They have like very structured, and you don't get to have that. But what you got to do, and I always felt is write out a list, like write out your split through the week and think of it like a puzzle piece. Like just be like, hey, I have 4 workouts I want to do in the week. And then look at your whole schedule and just be like, okay, Monday I could do that leg one. Okay. At 5 a.m. and then shift work and switch. I'll need to sleep. And then you out on the way home from the hospital that day, I could do it. And then this, and like, you won't get that lucky routine that you'll be like Monday, Tuesday, and it won't be so, but that's the reality of shift work. You don't get that as it is. So I think it's just like viewing your workouts as a little bit of a puzzle piece, and fit them in where you can. And hopefully you have weeks where you get more rest and more consistency. Maybe you do a bit more and a bit more lenient and less strict on your crazy shift times or your all night ones, and focus on just getting in walks when you can and movement when you can. That's my recommendation for shift workers.
I like that. Absolutely. What's yours?
And final. I have a crush, but he's still working on himself after divorce. It's not a lie. I believe him. How'd you cope and give it a rest? So how would you cope with someone who's saying he's just working on himself after a divorce? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I feel like she don't really have a choice, but like, you know, I mean, if the person's not ready, you kind of have to respect it. And I guess it depends on how much you like them, whether you care to wait around, but maybe still be open-minded because you don't know when they're going to come around. So still search. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with a crush if they're divorced and they're just working, you know, maybe down the road, they'll be ready to date. My question for her is like, do they know that she has a crush? What do you think?
Well, the fact he says he's still working on himself after divorce, like they've had that talk, like she knows that much at least. So I would say that my thought would be, first of all, assuming he's not lying and he actually is like, no, I just need to work on myself. We've all been there where like, I can't think of dating, Cause like my red flag is like, the usual excuse anyone uses is like, I'm working on myself. I guess my rationale would be, you got to go in it with, he's just this wild card. He's an option. I have a crush. It's flirty. It's fun, but I'm giving him no emotions, none. Cause he's doing his own thing. I'm 100% going to do my own thing, but it's a fun one. But like, he gets to take up like 3% of your bandwidth. And the best part is men, typically, I'm judging, but it's true. The less attention you give, the more they want you. And girls do the same. That's just universal humans. If you're like, as soon as you don't like someone, that's when they start liking you. So it's like a win-win that you're like, oh, it's a fun little crush and I'll think about it, but I'm going to go date other people. I'm going to keep on the dating apps. I'm not spending too much time thinking about him because he's focused on him. And then if he comes out in a couple months, it's an option. But like, Don't give him any of your emotion. He's just a crush. It's just fun, but focus on you. Keep dating other people. And then he'll probably be like, oh my God, I'll miss my opportunity and come running after. Or he won't. And then he wasn't worth it. And you didn't waste time on him, because that's the one place you don't want to get. You don't want to have wasted all this precious energy just to find out he's working on himself and like dragging you along as like an emotional punching bag for him. Even if he's the best guy. You want to just focus on you, and ironically, focusing on you makes you more attractive. So they'll probably like you more. And is that toxic? I don't know, but it's true.
I also think that like if he wanted to, he would. That's always just point blank. If he wanted to, he would. And I don't think you ever get it until you have someone that proves that to you, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think not that he has to like go after you right away, but down the road, if he's still kind of yanking on you a little bit, then okay, it's pretty obvious. He's just not at that point and you can't force it, or he's just not into it. Like sometimes that's a cold, hard truth. But like, I mean, so many of us have been in that position where someone's like maybe not ready to date, or like there's always these really weird excuses. Like I remember back in college and I'd be like, what? And then someone else would come along and I'd be like, oh, okay. If he really wanted to, he would have, right? So always just keep that in the back of your mind, because if you wanted to, you would, right?
Yeah, true. And you also got to think,
that complicated.
anyone who comes out of any relationship is like a little iffy. We've all been there. You're like, you kind of like, you're just a wild card. You got a lot of emotions. You don't even really want to be with someone like that. So that's why I'd be like, keep them like low down on the roster as a little option. Like, oh, it's a cute little crush. Keep your distance. They're kind of a nuclear bomb. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. They could set off. They'll like you one day. They'll hate you the next. They can't make up their mind. They're emotionally unstable. So don't let that control any of your emotion. But like I said, it's a fun crush.
Toxic of me to say find out why they got a divorce? Because what if it's bad? What if it's a red flag?
True. That's always whose fault. Yeah.
Right?
It's true. It's
like,
true.
I'm just saying.
Once a cheater, always a cheater.
Like, oh, you're the one that just called him a cheater. I was just saying, but like,
no, I was just saying, but that's it's a red flag. Red flags.
Yeah, absolutely. People, I stand by this, that when people are like, oh, well, he won't do it to me. I'm like, oh, honey, once a cheater, always a cheater. It's a character flaw.
Things, once in life you've ripped off the Band-Aid, that wound's always open. You know what I mean? Once you've cheated, you are now a cheater. So you're like, what's one more? Once you started smoking a cigarette, once you had the first, let's stop in the second. That's why I've never smoked a cigarette. Because once I do that, it's over for me. It's over the time I have the one. Cocaine, literally. Same idea. I will not do one, because once I do it once, I will forever do it, because I'm someone who's done it. You know what I mean? Like that's just the reality of flawed humans.
I just try to put myself in her position, and I don't know if it's bad or not, but I would just drop my mic. Sorry.
Yes. Mic drop.
Mic drop. I would do like truly anything though, like to figure out why that person got a divorce, to see if it's worth pursuing. Because if it's something messy, oh hell no. Or like how he treated her, hell no. But like if it's something just like, married young, went separate ways. You know, I am watching Gilmore Girls, guys, and I am finally, spoiler alert, at the episode where everything's coming together. Luke and Lorelai finally kiss, and I'm like, are you familiar with Gilmore Girls?
I've never watched anything. So
are you going to watch it?
I know. Probably not. I'm not going to think about it that hard, so you keep talking.
Okay, if you guys haven't watched it, skip ahead. But when Luke and Lorelai finally kiss, and then Rory, who is like her daughter, who is just so cute and innocent, sleeps with a married man, Dean, all in the same episode, I was like, one, I knew it was going to be like a season finale because it's always so intense. Classic. But I forgot that entire story. I knew like Lorelai ended with Luke, but like I didn't know what happened. Oh my, the tramp. I was at Rory. So if anybody watches Gilmore Girls, I'm at that point where I am so mad at her, and she's mad at her mom for just speaking the cold hard facts. Such a good show.
Noted. I got too many shows to go through. Monday maybe, but I'll wait till I forget everything you just said. It's on the bucket. It's on that list of I should watch, but I only got my one show a night because I'm now 5 a.m. annoying person that wakes up at that time, so I can balance all life because I'm overwhelmed.
There you go. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are ending our podcast. Don't forget to leave us a review. It helps us. We love to read them if you want to write something. Follow our Instagram, check out our YouTube channel, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.